She was my teacher, but her smile hid something dangerous. I was 18, a senior in high school, and I thought I knew what love felt like. I'd had crushes before, fleeting, shallow things that fizzled out after a week. But then I met Ms. Harper, and everything changed. Her sharp green eyes seemed to see right through me, her soft voice lingered like it was meant just for me, and the way she taught literature made it feel like we were sharing a secret no one else in the room could understand. She was 32, poised, untouchable, a world apart from the awkward, restless kid I was. Every day in her English class, I'd sit in the back row, heart pounding, scribbling her words in my notebook like they were poetry written for my soul. It wasn't just a crush, it was something deeper, something electric that made my chest ache. When she'd lean over my desk, her hand brushing mine as she pointed out a line in Shakespeare, I'd forget how to breathe. Her perfume, faint and floral, would linger in the air, and I'd hold on to that moment for the rest of the day. But there was always something off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first. The way she'd pause when I asked about her life outside school, her quick glances at the classroom door like she was expecting someone to burst in, the way her smile flickered when anyone mentioned her past. I told myself she was just private, maybe shy, but deep down, I knew it was more than that. I convinced myself I was special because she let me stay after class, talking about books, life, dreams, things I never shared with anyone else. One night, she asked me to help carry some books to her car after school. It was nothing, just a small favor, but we ended up leaning against her car under the streetlights, talking for hours. Her laugh was softer then, unguarded, and I swear she looked at me like I was more than just a student. My heart was all in, too far in to notice the warning signs, too caught up to see the cracks in her perfect facade. Then I found it. A crumpled letter in her desk drawer. It was a Friday, and I'd stayed late to help her grade papers. She'd stepped out to take a call, leaving me alone in the classroom. I was stacking quizzes when I noticed the drawer slightly ajar. I don't know why I looked, curiosity, maybe, or some instinct I couldn't name. Inside was a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges like it had been handled 100 times. My name was written on it in her handwriting, and my heart stopped. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. The letter was addressed to someone named L, and the words hit me like a fist to the chest. I can't keep doing this. Ethan's too close, too dangerous. He sees too much. If he finds out, it'll ruin everything. He can never know. My hand shook as I read it, my world tilting. Who was L? Who was he? And why was my name tangled up in this? The last line was the worst. I have to leave before it's too late. Leave? Ruin what? I stuffed the letter back before she returned, but I couldn't unsee it. Who was Ms. Harper, really? And what was she hiding that could break me? I didn't know it then, but that letter was the first thread unraveling a secret so dark it would shatter everything I thought I knew about love. Let me take you back to that year, senior year, when everything felt like it was teetering on the edge of something massive. I was 18, restless, trapped in a small town where the biggest thrill was the Friday night football game under flickering stadium lights. My name's Ethan, not that it matters much now, but it's what she called me, and the way she said it made my heart skip. School was a grind of exams and college applications, a countdown to escaping a place that felt too small for my dreams. But MS. Harper's English class? That was my sanctuary. She walked into our classroom on the first day, all confidence and mystery, with this way of making every word feel like it carried weight. She wasn't like the other teachers, worn down and just going through the motions. She was alive. Her dark hair fell just past her shoulders, and she had this habit of tucking it behind her ear when she was deep in thought, like she was solving some puzzle no one else could see. I noticed everything about her, too much, probably. The way her fingers traced the pages of a book, the way her voice softened when she read poetry, the way her eyes seemed to hold a story she'd never tell. I wasn't the only one who noticed her. The other guys in class would whisper about how she was hot for a teacher, their voices crude and careless. It made my skin crawl because it wasn't like that for me. It wasn't just her looks, though. God, she was beautiful. It was the way she'd read a passage from Wuthering Heights and make you feel the raw ache in Heathcliff's voice, like she knew what it was to long for something you could never have. I'd stay after class sometimes, pretending I didn't understand a poem or needed help with an essay, just to hear her explain it. She'd sit on the edge of her desk, her voice low and warm, and I'd feel this pull, like she was letting me into a corner of her world no one else got to see. I'd leave those conversations dizzy, replaying every word, every glance, searching for hidden meanings. My friends thought I was losing it. "She's your teacher, dude," they'd say, laughing over their burgers at the diner. "She's, like, old." But 32 wasn't old to me, it was close enough to feel real, far enough to feel forbidden, like a line I shouldn't cross but couldn't stop staring at. I didn't tell them how my chest tightened when she smiled at me, or how I started writing poems in my notebook, terrible, sappy ones I'd never show anyone. I told myself it was just a crush, something harmless to laugh about years later. But then there were moments that made me question everything. Like the time she caught me staring during a lecture on Romeo and Juliet. I thought she'd call me out, but she didn't. Her eyes held mine for a second too long, and I swear something passed between us, something unspoken, heavy, real. My heart pounded so loud I thought the whole class could hear it. I started finding excuses to be around her. I'd volunteer to clean the chalkboard, carry her books to the staff room, anything to steal a few extra minutes. She never pushed me away, never made me feel like I was bothering her. She'd ask about my life, my dreams of leaving this nowhere town, my fights with my dad about college, the way I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. I told her things I'd never told anyone, raw stuff I didn't even admit to myself. She listened, really listened, her eyes soft and focused, like I was the only person in the world. One day, she said, "Ethan, you're different. You see things others don't." My heart stopped. Was she just being kind, encouraging a student? Or was there more? I didn't know, but I wanted to believe there was. I clung to that hope like it was oxygen. Then came that night by her car, under the streetlights. It was late, after a school play rehearsal she was supervising. I offered to help carry some props, cardboard trees and fake swords, to her car, just to spend a little more time with her. We ended up leaning against her beat-up sedan, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her favorite book, The Great Gatsby, and how she related to Daisy's impossible choices, torn between what she wanted and what she could never have. Her voice was softer than usual, her guard down, and she looked at me with this intensity that made my skin burn. "Sometimes," she said, her eyes distant, "you want something so badly, but you know it'll destroy you." I thought she was talking about me, about us, about this thing I felt growing between us. My heart was screaming to tell her how I felt, but I didn't. I just nodded, too scared to break the moment. I was wrong to think she meant me. So wrong. That letter changed everything. I found it by accident, or maybe it was fate, hard to say now. It was a Friday, and I'd stayed late to help Ms. Harper grade quizzes. She'd stepped out to take a phone call, her voice hushed and urgent as she slipped into the hallway. I was alone in her classroom, stacking papers, when I noticed her desk drawer was slightly open. I don't know what made me look, curiosity, maybe, or some gut feeling I couldn't shake. Inside was a folded piece of paper, worn at the edges like it had been read and reread 100 times. My name was scrawled on it in her neat, looping handwriting, and my heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. I knew I shouldn't touch it, but my hands moved before my brain could catch up. I unfolded it, my breath catching. The letter was short, but every word hit like a punch. It was addressed to someone named Elle, and it started with, "I can't keep doing this." She wrote about me, about how I was too close, how I was dangerous because I saw too much. She mentioned a he who could never know, someone she was protecting, someone she feared. "If Ethan finds out, it'll ruin everything," she wrote. "I have to leave before it's too late." My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Leave? Ruin what? Who was he? Why was my name tangled up in this? The words burned into my brain, dangerous, can't stay, he can never know. I stuffed the letter back in the drawer before she came back, my pulse racing, but I couldn't unsee it. That night, I barely slept, my mind spinning with questions. Was she married? Hiding a boyfriend? Or was it something worse, something I couldn't even imagine? The letter felt like proof of something I couldn't name, a shadow lurking behind her smile. The next week, I became obsessed. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't stop. I started watching her more closely, looking for clues in every gesture, every word. I noticed things I'd ignored before: how she'd tense up when her phone buzzed, how she'd avoid talking about her life outside school, how her fingers would fidget with a silver locket she wore around her neck when she thought no one was looking. I started lingering after class, asking vague questions about her past, hoping she'd slip up. "Where did you teach before this?" I'd ask, trying to sound casual. She'd smile, deflect, say something like, "Oh, just some schools up north," but her eyes would dart away, and I'd feel that same unease from the letter, like I was brushing against something she didn't want me to see. One day, I pushed too far. We were alone in the classroom, the late afternoon sun slanting through the windows, casting long shadows across the desks. I was helping her organize a stack of essays, and the silence felt heavy, charged. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Miss Harper," I said, my voice unsteady, "why don't you ever talk about your family?" Her face changed, just for a second, but I saw it. Fear, raw and unguarded, flashed in her eyes. "Some things are private, Ethan," she said, her voice sharper than I'd ever heard it. Then she softened, like she regretted snapping. "You're sweet to care, but don't." That word, "don't," hit me like a warning shot. It wasn't just a brush off. It was a wall, and I just slammed into it. I started noticing other things, small but impossible to ignore. A car I didn't recognize, a black sedan, parked near the school lot some evenings, always when she was there late. I'd see it from the window, just sitting there, no one getting out. One time, I passed by her office and heard a man's voice on her phone, muffled but angry, the kind of tone that makes your skin prickle. My imagination went wild. Was she running from someone? Hiding from a past she couldn't escape? I told myself I was in love with her, that I needed to protect her, but deep down, I was scared. Scared of what I'd find, scared of what it would do to me. I started losing sleep, replaying that letter in my head, wondering if I was the dangerous one or if it was someone else. Then came the night that broke me. It was a month after I found the letter, and I'd started staying late at school just to be near her, hoping for answers. She was grading papers in her classroom, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I offered to help, like always, but she seemed distracted, her fingers fidgeting with that locket more than usual. I couldn't take it anymore. The words had been burning in my chest for weeks, and they spilled out before I could stop them. "Miss Harper," I said, my voice shaking, "are you in trouble?" I saw something. A letter. It had my name in it. Her face went pale, like all the blood had drained out of her. For a moment, she didn't speak, just stared at me like I'd pulled a pin from a grenade. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "you shouldn't have seen that." She stood, grabbing her bag with quick, panicked movements. "You need to forget it. Please." But I couldn't. I stepped closer, my heart hammering so loud I could hear it. "Tell me the truth," I said. "I care about you. I love you." The words slipped out, raw and desperate, and the air in the room seemed to freeze. She froze too, her eyes wide with something I couldn't read: pity, fear, maybe even a flicker of longing. "Ethan," she said, her voice breaking, "you don't know what you're saying. You don't know me." She turned to leave, her movements jerky, like she was fighting to hold herself together. I grabbed her arm, not hard, just enough to make her stop. "Then tell me," I begged, my voice cracking. "What are you hiding? Who's Elle? Who's he?" My heart was screaming, my whole body trembling with the weight of it. She pulled away, her eyes glistening with tears she wouldn't let fall. "Go home, Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. This was a mistake. She walked out, leaving me standing alone in the empty classroom, my confession hanging in the air like a wound. The door clicked shut behind her, and I felt like I'd just lost something I'd never get back. I didn't know it then, but that was the last time I'd see her. The next day, Ms. Harper didn't show up to school. A substitute took over her class, some guy who didn't even know how to pronounce Bronte and fumbled through the lesson like he was reading a script. No one knew where she was. The principal made an announcement at assembly, his voice tight and professional, saying she'd taken a personal leave and would be back soon. But the way he said it, the way he avoided questions, made my stomach churn. I kept seeing her face, the way she'd look when I told her I loved her, scared, broken, like I'd shattered something fragile. Had I pushed her too far? Was she running because of me? The guilt knotted me, but so did the questions. That letter wasn't just about me, it was about someone else, someone she was afraid of. I needed to know who. I couldn't let it go. I started asking questions, quietly at first, trying not to raise suspicion. I talked to other teachers, pretending I was worried about her grading my college recommendation letter. No one knew much. She'd only been at our school for a year, and she'd kept to herself, never joining the other teachers for drinks or school events. One teacher, Mrs. Callahan, mentioned she'd come from a school in Boston, but when I pressed for details, she shrugged and said, "Claire never talked about herself." That stuck with me, Claire. Her first name felt intimate, forbidden, like a secret I wasn't supposed to know. I started searching online, using every scrap of information I had. Her name, Claire Harper, pulled up nothing useful. No social media, no old articles, no trace of her anywhere. It was like she didn't exist outside our school. I tried variations of her name, digging through public records, school directories, anything I could find. Late at night, I'd sit in my room, my laptop glowing, chasing dead ends while my mom banged on my door, yelling about my slipping grades. I couldn't tell her why I was distracted. How do you explain that you're obsessed with finding out if the woman you love is a lie? My friends noticed too, but I brushed them off, saying I was stressed about college apps. The truth was, I was drowning in her absence, in the questions she'd left behind. Then I found something. A news article from a small town in Maine, buried in an online archive from 3 years ago. A woman named Claire Ellison, 29 at the time, had been involved in a scandal at a private school. The article was vague, but it said she'd been accused of an inappropriate relationship with a student, not a minor, but close enough to cause a firestorm. No charges were filed, but she'd left the school abruptly, her career in ruins. There was a grainy photo attached, and even though the quality was terrible, I knew it was her. Same dark hair, same sharp green eyes that haunted my dreams. My heart sank. Was this her secret? Was I just another mistake, another student who got too close? The thought made me sick, but it didn't fit. The letter I'd found wasn't about a past scandal, it was about now, about me, about someone she was running from. I kept digging, my desperation growing. That's when I found the second clue. A marriage record from 5 years ago, linking a Claire Ellison to a man named Lucas Reed. No divorce record, no mention of a separation. Lucas Reed was a name I didn't know, but it felt like the L from the letter. Was he the he she was protecting? The one she feared? My mind raced with possibilities. Was he an ex, a husband, someone dangerous? I started watching the school parking lot, looking for that black sedan I'd seen before. One night, I saw it again, parked across the street under a flickering streetlight. A man was inside, just sitting there, his face shadowed. I couldn't see much, but my gut screamed that he was watching the school, watching for her. I wrote down the license plate, my hands trembling, and ran it through an online database I found on a sketchy forum. It came back registered to a Lucas Reed, 35, from Boston. My blood ran cold. He was real, and he was here. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to confront him, to storm up to that car and demand answers, but I was just a kid. What could I do against someone who scared her enough to make her run? Instead, I kept searching, piecing together fragments like a detective in a story I didn't want to be in. I found an old blog post from a student at that Maine school, anonymous but detailed. It described Claire as magnetic but troubled, someone who got too close to her students, who blurred lines in a way that felt thrilling but dangerous. The post hinted at something darker, a controlling ex, someone who'd made her life hell, who'd followed her even after she left. Was that Lucas? Was she hiding in our small town, using a new name to escape him? The pieces were starting to fit, but they only raised more questions. I went back to her classroom, hoping to find something she'd left behind. The substitute had taken over, but her desk was still there, untouched, like a ghost of her presence. I rifled through it, my heart pounding, but found nothing, no letter, no locket, no trace of her. It was like she'd erased herself. But then, in the trash can, I found a torn piece of paper with a phone number scribbled on it in her handwriting. I called it from a burner app, my hands shaking so badly I could barely type. A man answered, his voice low and rough, almost a growl. "Who is this?" he demanded. I froze, my breath catching, and hung up. I didn't know if it was Lucas, but the sound of his voice made my skin crawl, like I'd just brushed against something dangerous. Weeks passed, and the school moved on. My friends stopped talking about her, the substitute became the new normal, and her name faded from the hallways. But I couldn't let it go. I kept seeing her in my dreams, her smile, her voice, that moment when I told her I loved her and watched her break. I started wondering if I'd imagined the connection, if I'd built it all up in my head because I wanted to feel special. But the letter was real. The car was real. Lucas was real. I started skipping classes, driving to nearby towns, looking for any sign of her, a car, a glimpse of dark hair, anything. I didn't know what I'd say if I found her, only that I needed to know she was okay, that I hadn't driven her away. Then, one night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Just 3 words, "Stop looking, Ethan." My heart stopped. It was her. It had to be. I texted back, my fingers fumbling, begging her to tell me where she was, to explain everything. No reply. I called the number, but it was disconnected, like she'd vanished into thin air. I sat on my bed, staring at the screen, feeling like I was losing my mind. Was she okay? Was she running from Lucas, from me, from everything? I didn't know, and the not knowing was tearing me apart. I never saw Ms. Harper again. A month later, I got an email from an anonymous account, no name, no trace, just a single line: "I'm safe, but you need to let me go." I read it over and over, searching for her in the words, but they were empty, like a door slamming shut. I don't know if she was running from Lucas, from her past, or from the kid who loved her too much. Maybe all of it. I don't know if she ever felt what I felt, or if I was just a naive 18-year-old who got too close to a fire he didn't understand. The locket, the letter, the man in the car, they're all pieces of a puzzle I'll never solve, fragments of a story that ended before I could understand it. I graduated that spring, left for college, tried to move on. I packed away the notebook with her words, the poems I wrote, the questions that still burn. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet, I think about her. I wonder if she's out there, still hiding, still carrying that secret like a weight she can't put down. I wonder if I could have saved her, or if I was the one who pushed her to run. Love's supposed to feel good, right? It's supposed to lift you up, make you whole. But this love, it left me hollow, chasing shadows I'll never catch, haunted by a woman I thought I knew. What would you do if you loved someone who was hiding a truth you couldn't face? Would you keep searching, even if it broke you? Would you let them go, knowing you'd never have answers? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in this. If this story hit you hard, if it made your heart ache or your mind race, hit that like button and share it with someone who gets it. Subscribe for more stories that dig into the messy, painful, beautiful parts of love, the ones that keep you up at night. Because sometimes, the truth is the heaviest thing we carry, and the hardest thing to let go.